Well, it was just over a year ago that Arizona Congresswoman Gabrielle Giffords was shot through the head when she was attacked during a meeting with constituents outside a Tucson supermarket. The shooting left 6 people dead and 13 others injured, including a 9-year-old girl, a Giffords aide, and a federal judge. Giffords spent much of the past year in rehabilitation, regaining the ability to speak and walk. And on Sunday, after an emotional follow-up meeting with the attack survivors, she announced her plans to leave public office.
Thank you for your prayers and for giving me time to recover. I have more work to do on my recovery, so to do what is best for Arizona, I will step down this week. I'm getting better. Every day, my spirit is high. I will return.
In a bittersweet farewell, Representative Giffords claimed her seat in the House of Representatives Tuesday night and was embraced by President Barack Obama before he delivered his annual State of the Union address. Yesterday, she returned to the House to cast a last vote for legislation that levies new penalties on traffickers who use small aircraft to smuggle drugs across the U.S. border from Mexico. In a rare display of bipartisanship, the vote on the bill was 408-0. Then, in a tearful ceremony, Congresswoman Debbie Wasserman Schultz, a South Florida representative and close friend of Giffords, read Giffords' resignation letter.
The tragic January 8th shooting in Tucson took the lives of 6 beautiful Americans and wounded 13 others, me included. I'm sorry. Not a day goes by that I don't feel grief for the lives lost and so many others torn apart. I have given all of myself to being able to walk back onto the House floor this year to represent Arizona's 8th congressional district. However, today I know that now is not the time. I have more work to do on my recovery before I can again serve in elected office. This past year, my colleagues and staff have worked to make sure my constituents were represented in Congress. But if I can't return, my district deserves to elect a U.S. representative who can give 100% to the job now.
That was South Florida Representative, Debbie Wasserman Schultz reading Giffords' resignation letter Wednesday on the floor of the U.S. House. As Giffords steps down, we look today at the iconic semi-automatic pistol used in her attack, called a Glock. The gun drew attention over the past year after the local Republican Party where she was shot planned to raffle off the same brand of gun used in the Tucson shooting Rampage. Giffords herself has not publicly adjusted her stance as a gun rights advocate. The Glock has been used in a number of the worst mass shootings in U.S. history. Virginia Tech, which left 32 people dead in 2007, and at Northern Illinois University, where 5 people were killed in 2008. Still, gun control advocates have had little success calling for restrictions on Glocks or the large-capacity ammunition magazines they can accommodate. For more, we're joined by Paul Barrett, who literally wrote the book about the Glock, just out this month. It's called Glock, The Rise of America's Gun. Paul Barrett's also an assistant managing editor at Bloomberg Businessweek. Paul, welcome to Democracy Now!
Thanks, Amy.
Talk about this pistol that wounded so gravely Gabby Giffords and killed 6 others.
This is was a Glock 19, as you said, semi-automatic pistol, mostly made out of plastic, and its chief feature is the large ammunition capacity. In Tucson, the killer went into a Main Street gun store and was able to buy a 33-round magazine. This magazine is so large, it actually sticks out the bottom of the handle of the gun, of the grip. And you can fire it very quickly, and you can get off that large number of rounds before you have to reload. And in fact, that's exactly what happened. He got off all those rounds, emptied his magazine, and it was only then that people were able to subdue him. Along with the litany that you recited having to do with the Glock's prevalence in America, we should also add that 2/3 of all American police departments use this gun. So this is not just a bad guy's gun. This is also the good guy's gun. This is everyone's gun, and that's why I find it so striking. It really has redefined the handgun market in the United States.
But, Paul, in your book, which I have to tell you is a fascinating read, it reads like a novel more than a study of a gun, but those who are not gun enthusiasts would not know that this is a relatively new phenomenon.
Absolutely.
And the story of this gun and the fact that the inventor, Gaston Glock, knew virtually nothing about guns before he created the Glock. You talk about that history.
You're exactly right. Gaston Glock was a manager of a radiator factory outside of Vienna. On the side, he ran a metal shop in his garage that his wife oversaw during the day. But one of the products he made in the metal shop was knife blades for the Austrian military. This gave him contacts in the Ministry of Defense. And when Austria decided to replace their World War II-era sidearms with a new gun, Gaston Glock audaciously put his hand up and said, "I'd like to try to design that gun." People laughed at him in Austria.
This was only in the early 1980s.
1980, right. In 1982, he, after gathering some of the best handgun experts together and asking them for what elements of a gun would be best suited for the military, he came up with this design. And his huge advantage was the disadvantage you just identified. He started with a blank piece of paper. Rather than telling his customer what they wanted, he listened to what they were looking for, and he came up with this very modern, very futuristic-looking, mostly plastic gun that was inexpensive to produce, so his profit margin was high, very easy to use. There are no complicated safety gizmos, and we could talk about that some more because that has a downside as well. Has this large magazine capacity. It's very durable, which is very appealing to a military or a police department which is buying the guns en masse.
It has very few parts that have separate parts that have to be manufactured.
It had half or a third of the parts of comparable guns. There's just less to break down, and the parts also come in modules, so you can pull them in and out. You can literally mix and match the parts. This was a very practical product, similar to the Japanese cars that showed up in the United States in the 70s and 80s and had so much success against Detroit's cars. Well, in the same way, the Glock came to the United States and pushed aside Smith & Wesson, the incumbent gun company that until that time was dominant.
So American police use Austrian guns.
That's absolutely correct.
And you tell the story of how that happened. How did all these police departments adopt this gun?
In addition to his brilliant starting from scratch with a blank piece of paper, Glock had phenomenal timing, just good luck. He showed up in the United States saying, "I've got the pistol of the future," at precisely the moment that police departments in this country felt that they were, as they put it, outgunned by the bad guys. This is the mid to late 80s. Crime levels are going up in big cities, fueled in many cases by crack cocaine violence, gangs shooting at each other. And the police just felt that the traditional 6-round Smith & Wesson .38 caliber revolver was kind of yesterday's weapon. They wanted tomorrow's weapon. They wanted to jump ahead of the bad guys. And Glock had this product that seemed so appealing. And within the space of just a few years, you went from a completely Smith & Wesson gun culture to this semi-automatic pistol gun culture, and Glock was out there in front.
We're going to go to break, and then we're going to come back to our discussion with Paul Barrett. He is author of the new book, Glock, The Rise of America's Gun, also assistant managing editor at Bloomberg Businessweek. This is Democracy Now!, back in a minute.